thing I understood the most about it was that what it means to be world weary and to live forever.
Whether it's a love or a drug or sex or cocaine, you know, whatever it is, whatever the addiction to, this happens to be, you know, blood.
Blood is a drug.
Bullseye, yeah! Bullseye!
I wrote it together with Eric Red, and we decided to write 2 scripts back to back on spec, and one that I would direct, one that he would direct. We did his first, it was called Undertow, and then we wrote Near Dark after that. And they both kind of came out of some sort of kind of interesting, or especially Near Dark, interesting, I thought, idea of doing a Western, but then creating a hybrid with a horror movie. The Western, you know, what that evokes, and then a kind of the vampire, you know, kind of very sexually oriented mythology. They're both very romantic. So the two seem to be kind of a, I guess since they're both in a way very nostalgic, they seem to be a nice fusion. And then doing a lot of research about the mythology of vampirism comes from, actually there is a skin condition that, you know, people can have where it's not just you get sunburned, you know, it's apparently a horrible experience if you're in the sun, and these people have to live at night.
Something you wanted to show me?
Yeah, the night.
What about it?
It's dark.
One real inspirational element was the book by Bram Stoker, Dracula. But we made it a conscious effort to change the rules to sort of make it an original piece, and took all the Gothic elements away, the sort of spikes through the heart, the crosses, and tried to keep it very clean and very kind of simple, logical, and straightforward, and it being a matter of light and dark, hence the term Near Dark. So once we finished the script, we then set about trying to get it financed. Now, when you write on spec, the good news is, you know, you control the property. And part of being able to control the property was I specified that I was the director of it.
I got a hold of a script from Eric Red, who had co-written the script with Catherine Bigelow. At the time, we were looking for low-budget original scripts. You know, there are a lot of low-budget films, but most of them don't have any real pizzazz to them. This show had a lot of pizzazz to it.
The script was very visual, very clear. You know, I wasn't a huge fan of Gothic vampire movies, and I love the fact that it was the first non-Gothic vampire movie. And I just loved Catherine's energy.
Catherine wanted to direct the movie, and I met with her, and she was very intelligent, very interesting. And I told her point blank, I made a deal with her. I said, I'll tell you what, I'm going to let you prep the movie. I'm going to see how you do the first 3 days, but if I don't think you know what you're doing, you're going to get taken off the movie.
I had already directed a film called, The Loveless. I co-directed it with a man named Monty Montgomery. We also wrote it together.
The fact that it was her first solo outing didn't in any way, you know, concern me. There are a lot of more experienced directors who I would be afraid to work with because they've never learned how to prepare or, you know, do their homework. And with Catherine, aside from her enthusiasm, she's the hardest working director I've ever worked with. She also had storyboarded it, which I always took as a very strong sign of someone who's done their homework and knows, you know, that, you know, time is money, the schedule is going to be very tough.
Until Near Dark, I did, don't know exactly, between 60 to 80 feature films.
Adam Greenberg at the time was the celebrity independent DP.
And after Terminator, I was very popular. The first Terminator. I think it was done 1984. It was a low-budget movie and very effective and stylized. And I think Catherine, she was impressed.
He was the guy when you made non-union pictures. He was the man you went to.
After Terminator was like a rainstorm, getting so many scripts. I remember particularly in this period of time when I got the Near Dark, the script Near Dark, I had 8 scripts to choose from. 8 scripts, and I took Near Dark.
Check out time.
She cast the movie, I thought, really expertly. And that was the first sign that I was really very happy with what she was doing.
I remember getting the script and sitting down to read it, and I thought, God, this has this great vampire, kind of a contemporary vampire story, but it had these kind of elements of Bonnie and Clyde because this family are having to kind of shoot their way out. I love the idea that these were modern vampires who couldn't just rely on their supernatural abilities. And I remember calling Lance Henriksen up and saying, and really being excited and saying, Lance, I read this incredible script. You've got to read it.
Billy Paxton called me in the middle of the night, and this is no kidding, and he was living in Santa Monica at the time, and said, hey, Lance, I got this great script, and it's a Western, and it's about vampires. And I said, oh, God, Billy, come on.
He's like, Bill, listen, we've just done Aliens for Jim Cameron. We don't want to go off and do some, half-cocked, B movie. So I said, look, just read the script. Just read it, get back to me. Like a day later, he calls me back. Now he's the one who's excited. We have got to do this movie.
So I get in there and I meet Catherine Bigelow, who's this raving beauty. I mean, she's a dark Irish beauty, right? And we start talking about, I had read the script and I got kind of excited about it because the only role I was interested in was Severin, the role that Bill Paxton got, right? And so we're talking and I suddenly started realizing that the guy that I wanted could play as well was the guy who was the leader of the group, Jesse Hooker. So Catherine and I hit it off. I really liked her very much. I thought she was very open to ideas.
She seemed very confident in what she wanted to do, very different from a lot of other people I'd met so far.
It means you'll be real uncomfortable for a long, long time.
The script was beautiful. It was like poetry. It was so spare, the dialogue. I thought it was just very different from a lot of the scripts I'd read. It didn't insult your intelligence. It left a lot to be imagined.
So then Billy got hired, I got hired, and Jeanette Goldstein got hired, and none of us knew it.
She wanted to call Jim Cameron to see if that was okay, because he was basically kind of cannibalizing a big part of the Aliens cast for Near Dark. Jim talked to Catherine, and they both, Jim was completely cool with it. He said, I'm complimented. Yeah, if they want to do the movie, by all means.
I felt that if you literally inherited a group of actors who had already kind of gone through a production together, which is like experiencing war, you take them and it's an intact family. There's again, a familiarity that is undeniable, and I thought that would be a tremendous asset.
We'd gone out to dinner together, and Bill and Lance and I don't know who first mentioned, well, there's this movie, it's a vampire movie, but don't worry, it's really good, I don't know how to explain it. And then someone else said, wait a second. We'd sort of neglected to tell each other about it because we were sort of embarrassed that we didn't know how to explain that it was really a good movie, and
I wasn't interested at all. I'm not interested in this kind of genre, And Catherine just said it wasn't anything like any genre that had been before it. And it piqued my interest, and I think I was the antithesis of what they might have been looking for initially. I'm much more urban than that. I read, from the city and playing a cowboy, but I knew I could do it. And she took a big leap of faith, and it was a tremendous payoff, I think, for me personally.
What is going on? Ain't what's going on, son. It's what's coming off. Your face, clean off.
It was the cast that got me. I went to see Aliens in Westwood the day before our rehearsal. And that was with Bill and Lance and Jeanette, and I just said, holy mackerel, you know, I get to work with these people? This is just incredible. So I threw out all my concerns about the genre.
It ain't right for me to be carrying you, Caleb. He makes you kill tonight.
When I met Lance on Aliens, I was instantly kind of in awe of him in terms of the way I saw the way he put a role together. Lance would go out and spend several thousands of dollars on all kinds of maybe props and different things, and he's such a chameleon, and he just changed himself.
I wanted my hands to look a certain way, so I got acrylic nails put on and broke them off with a pair of pliers, so I looked like bones coming out the tips of my fingers.
And he had these nails that were just jagged and horrible nails. I said, "What the hell have you done?" And he said, "Well, I got some guy in Beverly Hills to glue on these kind of nail extensions, but these were like really thick and really gnarly." And then he said, "Then I went home and I broke them. I took a pair of pliers and I kind of broke them all off." And his hands kind of hung, and they had the great kind of extension, kind of reminiscent of the original, you know, Max Schreck as Nosferatu.
I went down to about 140 pounds on purpose, so I wanted to be able to see the bones on my chest. When you don't eat and get real skinny, you lose your muscle tone. And so I was reaching for a step, and my back went out and went like that. But I went, oh man, I better eat some food here.
Then it's decided. We give him a week to see if we can call him one of us.
I had it right away, almost instantly. Like I wanted to be from the deep South, and I had been in the Confederate Navy, not the Army, and I sewed a rebel flag on the inside of my coat from my ship.
I fought for the South.
So?
We lost.
I even knew how I got turned and became a vampire. You want to know how it happened? There was a fight on the Delaware, at Chesapeake. And my ship got pounded pretty bad, and the cannonballs were hitting the deck, and splinters of wood were hitting all the men and killing them. The ship is drifting with all the men dying and moaning on the deck into the marshes. And these harpies, shadow creatures, are feeding on the dying man. And my character is laying there with his chest open, the steam going out into the night air. And this harpy comes over him and takes pity on him and turns him. That's how I saw it happening. Anyhow, I had all this going, and I told Catherine about it, and she goes, oh, the more I talked, the more she leaned in, and the more conspiratorial it got. And I knew I really want to work with this person.
I'd stop right there if I was you, mister. Not likely.
He was kind of the father of the clan. He'd certainly been a mentor to me on Aliens. That was a hard show for me, and I was delighted. I kind of always saw Lance as kind of a big brother figure.
Oh, you cheating, Sever.
I ain't cheating.
What's this?
I was going to be a victim of his early on, and he saw something in me. I looked like the kid brother that he had lost during the war. My character was kind of a Wild West character. I wanted to get a lot of kind of Western slang in there. You know, like, hey, that guy smelled like a dead polecat, you know?
Hey, Jess, that guy smelled like a dead polecat.
I had some kind of Western novels that had great colloquial expressions like that, and I hate them when they ain't been shaved, and, you know, finger licking good, and they ever tell you the one about Buffalo Bill? Lance came up with that one.
Hey, ever tell you the one about Buffalo Bill?
Jeanette came along later on and kind of split up the guys a little bit, you know. She was the kind of surrogate wife, and then kind of becomes the mother figure of Joshua.
The Jeanette Goldstein character, Diamondback, wanting this son and yet the boy is probably older than she is.
Homer, you look at me when I'm talking to you now. What?
Because that was the core of the film, the family. My period was Dust Bowl, The Postman Always Rings Twice, the Depression era woman. I think there might have been a mention in the script about how she looked and that she had blonde hair. And then I remember Catherine said, "Oh, no, don't worry about it. You don't have to do anything else." And I said, "Oh, no, I absolutely want to." I was thinking about, what do you do when you're poor and you're living on the outside and you've got peroxide and you can bleach your hair and the roots, of course, are grown out. There's not enough time when you're driving around on a Winnebago to touch up your hair. So yeah, I definitely wanted that sort of glamour gone bad look. So we moved through generations, and then my son was definitely 50s. He wore a 50s kid, a kind of odd Americana post-war kid, and then we moved up to the present.
And the girl and daughter who then falls in love with, with the outsider, because he is an outsider and not turned, he threatens their family structure, and therefore, is their survival is called into question.
Well, we were trying to find a parallel for what kind of family it was, and I remember thinking of gypsies, the gypsy family, and at all cost, you save the family against the outsiders.
Howdy. I'm gonna separate your head from your shoulders. Hope you don't mind none.
It's interesting, criminology in films and the kind of moral code that you set up for the audience, even though we're anti-heroes in the movie. And you know that we have to come to, our just desserts at the end of the film. Just like how The Godfather works, because you see this incredible family allegiance to one another, it almost creates an empathy, because they have their code, even though they're like gypsies who kind of live, they're a pariah, society that feed off the general public.
It's a nice analogy, it's a nice metaphor for, struggles we experience in a geopolitical basis all the time.
Catherine was so kind of enamored with the family, this nuclear family that we almost come off in a way kind of sympathetic, because most of the victims we pick up are not very nice people.
You're not gonna look so good with your face ripped off.
I really saw them as these kind of both nomadic but anarchists, and sort of living outside the fringe of society, and yet feeding off the system as we know it.
We didn't think of ourselves as vampires. We were just feeding off the, it's like wolves, really, nocturnal nomad wolves, that we were just eating what was slow or mean or stupid.
They're meant to have lived and roamed the Western landscape for a century, if not longer.
Imagine how many times they've done this. Got on a Greyhound bus and said, "Look, everybody, nobody's getting off this bus alive," that kind of thing.
They're tremendously powerful, living by night. There's a kind of ennui and an aesthetic gravitas to living in darkness all the time.
What do we do now?
Anything we want. To the end of time.
What you're not seeing is the flip side to it. The boy who internally is a man, yet he's trapped in the body of a boy. And these relationships that will be eternal. And so, they can, in a way, never evolve.
Damn lie! No! Please, no!
Pull yourself together, old man!
We all think immortality, how extraordinary. Yes and no. And then you begin slowly this revelation of really this awakening that, in a way, maybe having time be finite, maybe a narrative to time and life, a beginning, middle, and end, there's a virtue and a value and a wisdom in that.
You're gonna keep talking, Jess, you're gonna get us out of the sun.
Okay. And And we started really talking a lot about this amongst ourselves and with Catherine, and we started bringing Catherine ideas.
We actually went through improvisations with each other and with Catherine to sort of flesh out, not necessarily to flesh out the roles dialogue-wise, although there was that, but just the relationship behind it.
We all had the roles, we all knew what the script was, we all knew where we had to go. Not the result, but where we had to go, basically. And then we started living those lives in the rehearsal.
We did this sort of boot camp, if you will. We found a very large space, and we gave them all the accoutrements of what they would need to have to blacken that space. If they were coming in out of the sun, had to darken it in a very short period of time, almost like a military maneuver.
What are you going to do? You crawl across the floor with a blanket over your head, and you put tinfoil up, and you spray the windows black, All of this stuff came up while we were rehearsing. I got the tinfoil idea from Elvis. He used to do that in the hotels, and I said, let's do that,
And we timed it, and so it was one of those things where you somebody took the windows, somebody took the chairs, somebody took the tape, somebody did this, everybody, it was all designated. And they would attack this room, blacken it within, it went from 5 minutes to 30 seconds. It was beautifully precise.
And those actually became scenes, because it was so dynamic when we were doing it, because everybody stayed true to it.
The kind of surgical precision that then created physically galvanized and really, in their mind, it created these characters.
It was wonderful, because we were radical.
I always think it's more exciting to physicalize a character, even if it's a very interior part, than make that character live only in a cerebral context.
What you people want? Just a couple more minutes of your time, about the same duration as the rest of your life.
Pre-production was difficult. We lost all of our locations. A lot of sets were already built. This was in Oklahoma, and the state flooded. They experienced a rainstorm unlike they had ever experienced in the past.
The day we were going to put the crew on the plane, we got a call from the production designer saying, you can't come because everything has been destroyed by torrential rains and floods.
Therefore, we had to relocate and try to stay on schedule. So we were able to do that in Arizona, and still got the world's first snowstorm at night in July.
Yeah, everybody else kind of flew down there, and I decided I'm going to drive, and because I wanted to live this guy on the road and see what happens. And I was looking pretty hairy. My hair was long, gray and long I had a little ponytail that I dipped in tar like they did in the old days, and I had the long coat on and my nails like that, and I got dirty on purpose and drove, and I picked up a hitchhiker, and I said to this guy, hey, roll me a cigarette, will you? And I gave him the makings, and I said, you call that a cigarette? No, put some more tobacco. I kept ordering him around, and he was getting real uptight, and he finally got the cigarette rolled, and I was watching him roll it, and oddly, I'm a really good driver, and oddly enough, I felt like I had my eyes off the road for a good 10 minutes, it felt like. I was like driving, watching the side of the road. It was like one of those things. And this guy kept saying, hey, watch the road, that kind of stuff. And I said, just make the cigarette. And he gave it to me, and I lit it up, and I just said, oh, this is, you call it a cigarette, that's crap, man. I threw it out the window, and this guy, he couldn't wait to get out of this car, man. I had him so scared. He thought I was going to dice and chop him up, And I pushed it right to the very edge. I was hoping this guy would shriek and beg me to let him out of the car. And then I knew I was getting the roll down right.
Yes, I get through here about once every 50 years. Make me reservation.
It was very hard, yes. Almost 40 nights, 40 days and 40 nights. Very biblical.
Yeah, it was $5 million. It was a 47-day shoot, 40 days of pure nights. In fact, I don't know why we're having this interview in the daytime.
This was basically the first time I had directed by myself on a film that had a little bit of size. And I know it's a small independent movie, but when you're starting out, this seemed mammoth, colossal. And you had an ensemble cast. It wasn't a simple cast. You had effects, you had stunts, night shoot.
Catherine and I seemed to want to work at night. I don't know why no one else does, but we do. And it does take its toll. You know, after the third night of night shooting, people go by the wayside or they make it all the way through.
So I like to shoot at night. You have really full control. And this is very important because if you don't light, it doesn't come out. And the way you light it is only what it shows. But daytime, you are forced to compromise things.
I was 21, 22. I mean, you try to get me to go to bed at 2 o'clock in the morning, you know. So we would just, you know, working all night was great, and then he'd sleep all day. And that was just a natural progression for me as a man at that time, and it also seemed to fit in tightly with what they required professionally for me as an actor, so it was great.
One morning, because our day began at sundown like vampire life, and ended as the sun was coming up, and you know, I was driving back with Catherine, and I fell asleep at the wheel, and we nearly weren't here for this.
It was very physically taxing on everybody, yet, you know, mandatory, and I think we all began to live the life of our characters.
We slept in a motel behind a truck stop most of the time.
We were out in, the Southwest in trailers. It was hard to get out of character, which I like doing. I don't like staying in character myself, but because we were at this motel and we were in a truck stop and there was nobody else except for, you know, us, the family around, and it was hard to not be in character because you were always confronted by, you know, the other members of the family.
Well, you people should stay up late.
We keep odd hours.
We decided we're going to go to Tombstone because we want to see some of our old buddies from like the 1850s because we'd outlived them all.
We kind of started doing kind of an ad lib where like we're pretending like, God, remember when we came to Tombstone 100 years ago? It's really, you know.
So we headed in. We're going down the road, and it's a convertible that I'd rented. And we're speeding. They had these stupid signs above the road that said, you are doing, and it would go 65, you know, 75. So I zoom under this bridge, and I'm doing 80, whatever, just sailing along. Well, I still had my scar on my face because we had worked. Billy was kind of, you know, wearing his leather shit.
I guess because of the whole Lizard King thing and the leather pants and the long hair, I was really kind of living my Jim Morrison fantasy.
So we looked a real sight, man. And this cop pulls us over.
Yeah, I've always had a problem with authority figures, and I guess this goes back to just being kind of a hoodlum in Fort Worth where I grew up and getting caught for different things.
Evening.
Evening.
You know, whenever I see a police car in the rearview mirror, I just start to kind of like tense up.
And the cop takes a look at us, and he doesn't really know what to do about it. He said, you know how fast you were going? And I said, I think about 80. And so he doesn't know. We've completely disarmed him by being so bold-faced. I was looking at him like a meal, you know, like I was going to really, you know, I could take this guy easy. By the time he reached for his gun, I'd have his arm off, you know.
Lance was just pushing this guy's button.
And Bill kept going, man, Lance, don't do that, you know.
Just be cool, man, you know, we're down here, we're from out of state.
He looks at my license, he's writing a ticket, and he looks up, and I'm looking down at him with such a lust in my eyes that he stepped back and went for his gun. He didn't pull it out, but I shook him so bad that he instinctively went for it. And then he went, here, just get out of here. He was like, we freaked him out, man.
I think Lance enjoyed torturing me in that moment, too. He has a very perverse sense of humor.
This is a classic example of the mood we were all in. Toy with anybody, we would do anything. One of the favorite things that happened to me, there's a little town called, in Arizona, where a freight train would stop in the middle of the town at night. Bill Paxton had just finished a scene where he gets hit by a truck and his head is split wide open. I mean, it's actually open like that, and blood down his whole body, right? A semi hits him.
I had about a 3-hour makeup job every night to do the whole wreck makeup after the truck had hit me and kind of torn off most of my face.
the train pulled in, and we had stopped shooting the scene, and Bill says, "Watch this." And he goes up. There's one of the conductors is standing on the side of the train, and Bill went up and
said, "There's been a terrible accident. Please, can you call somebody?" And,
"Hey man, there's been an accident. I mean, shit, I'm all right. You should see what happened to those guys." I mean, Bill's got it, and the guy almost passed out. He went, "Oh my!" He didn't know what was going on.
This guy just turned white as a ghost. Well, it probably wasn't very funny, but we were into, pulling pranks, and we had a lot of fun with these personas.
So it was great. We had a ball, man.
Fasten your fucking seatbelt!
There was a real bad boy element to the part I was playing of Severin. I loved doing crazy stuff for Lance to get his approval, and and Jeanette would just shake her head, and Catherine was there just whipping us on like ponies, egging us on, going, go, more. She gave us a lot of enthusiasm, and she gave us a lot of freedom, and she really encouraged this kind of empowerment, that we were invincible and that we were, and she laughed at all our jokes.
She made me think of that a matriarchal situation in filmmaking is really wonderful, rather than patriarch, always the guy going, can't you see I'm directing? Don't talk to me now. Where she's a nurturer, she's nurtures ideas.
Well, I was very excited to work with a woman. I hadn't up until that point. I'd worked with Tony Scott, and just men, drinking and smoking. And
Catherine prided herself on being kind of really one of the first real women director actioners.
She's smart, she's funny, she's also mysterious, so you don't quite know if you're scoring with her or not. Do you like this idea? And she'll go,
There were times when I would have a very clear idea of what I thought was just a stroke of genius, and halfway through my explanation, Catherine would just start going like this,
I don't think she had experience being on set in directing. I could see this, but she has education of film, was very important, and she has influence. She knew what is right and what is wrong.
Full of enthusiasm, very positive attitude in terms of her relationship with the actors.
One of her best things was picking people who did what they did, like Paxton. I mean, how do you direct a loose cannon, like that? You just hire him to do what he does because you let him go, and that's when and all the cylinders are hitting. He's great.
How can you drink that shit?
It was a great confidence builder for all of us as actors, for Catherine as a director, for Stephen Jaffe, who did an awesome job producing this film in terms of supporting Catherine, supporting us.
Both Adam and Steve Jaffe were the two kind of pillars of defense against the chaos and anarchy that reigns on all movie sets.
Adam squeezed every drop out of those pages. We got everything on film that you can possibly get.
He's an extraordinary cameraman. And again, having come with so much history, he gave both the film, the look, and the set a kind of ease.
I see the look of the movie I want to achieve. I know the look I want. It doesn't matter what is there. I never see importance of source of light. The source light for me is what I put the light. But important for me, the feel you're getting from the light. Because I think the orange sitting in the movie, he doesn't know that's the source. What comes back to you from the screen, this is what counts. In many scenes, I was able to take the camera on my shoulder, even on my knees, and do great shots, which I don't think I'll be able to do it on a tripod any other way.
It was extraordinary not to have to translate an idea or an image through various people. And since my background is in visuals and in the art world, I could sometimes even just draw it out for him and he'd get it immediately.
My contact between the cameraman and the director, it has to be very much on trust.
And then he would not only get it, but take the ball and run with it.
But I was known as very good operator. My reaction was was great, and I could read through the eyes of the actor what he's going to do and be ready just 100 seconds ahead of time to know what to anticipate.
I actually have longed for that experience ever since.
I remember shooting the bar scene, which is kind of the set piece for the movie, with that first shot of those pool balls breaking, and you hear that dun 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 dun, and then suddenly, bam, the door comes open, and here they come.
Well, I'll be goddamn. Shit kicker heaven.
That sequence has so much confidence as a piece of filmmaking.
Bartender, give me a couple of shots, whatever donkey piss you're shoving down these cocksuckers' throats.
Hey! Hey!
I had woken up in my apartment in Venice with my gal, and I had a terrible migraine headache. I get really bad migraine headaches where for about a half hour I can't even hardly see. It's like the Twilight Zone. And so I said to Catherine, Catherine, I'm so excited about the scene, but I just have no energy. And so I said, can we get a doctor out here as the medic on the set? Can I get a shot of something? And I remember I had kind of my first shot of B12. I tell you, next thing I knew, I was rocking and rolling. And that barroom scene just got wild. It just wilder and wilder. I remember, oh, you.
It was the first time I'd ever been rigged with squibs to blow out the gunshot when I get shot in the stomach. And I wasn't familiar with how to react to these things, but I was told that I was supposed to hold my stomach and not breathe in at the moment where the squibs were going to blow, because I could, if I was just against a wall, it would have blown out my ribs. I needed somewhere to go backwards, And it caught me unawares. They shot the gun, and I was reacting to the off-camera sound of somebody went like that. I wasn't prepared for it, and all you see is me going, I mean, I had really lost my breath, and I had to continue with the scene, and that's the take that they used.
This is a kick, ain't it?
I remember the actor who played the bartender, and he was kind of doing this whole method thing. We started going, he started getting himself worked up, and which was cool, but it was just kind of strange to see this guy kind of bellowing behind the bar. And in a way, me and Lance looked at each other like, we're gonna have fun killing this guy, Sometimes between action cuts, something will happen that you didn't know will happen, or you'll be taken somewhere, and that's the take that, boy, if you get that, and was it in focus? We got it. There's no hair in the gate. That's when you kind of capture magic.
Don't fuck with me.
I hit this line, finger licking good. I hit that thing like it was like one of those tee shots where you just come down on the ball. You just hear that sound, you've hit it all the way to the green.
It's finger licking good.
Prosthetics that they had placed on the cheek, this is really complicated. I had designed them all the way up to here and under my neck as well, and on my hands. And in the prosthetics, they punctured them with pinholes, like hundreds of them. And into the prosthetics ran plastic tubes. And those tubes ran down here into a device that I had strapped to my stomach. And there were 6 cylinders in there, and each cylinder held a lit cigar. And there were electric fans on top of each cigar that, when the lid was closed, would push oxygen through the cigar. When the smoke comes out, all it is cigar smoke. And it's really putrid. After about 2 or 3 hours, the nicotine, this yellow juice, would start to collect here at where the prosthetic was attached, because it was like a little little space between my skin and the prosthetic, so the smoke could come out. But at the end of that day, or the end of that couple of days, we ended up having to do that stuff running through the cornfields and all that. Man, I stunk like a stogie for, a good week and a half afterwards. Really, I smelled just like I'd been smoking cigar after cigar, playing in some Diamond Jim poker game for an endless hand. It was awful. But it worked, and it was fantastic.
We didn't mind torturing ourselves.
Fucking daylight!
The movie takes place during the summer, but it was freezing cold, and we had Jenny Wright and Adrian Pasdar dressed in, shirt sleeves, cold, warm weather clothing, and of course they were showing breath. And the only way to deal with that, without digital effects, which didn't exist then, was on top of everything of saying, please act warm, dress, look like it's summer, and by the way, could you put these ice cubes in your mouth just before you talk?
Sure haven't met many girls like you.
No, you haven't met any girls like me.
She was the female on the show. She was the sexy one, she was the mother, she was the crazy, she was the temptress. She was all those things that her character was supposed to be. She was. Jenny is. When you think about it, it was like probably the subtle glue between all this alpha male behavior that was happening around her. Even, Jeanette was acting tough, With Jenny, she was defined, I think, through finesse and delicacy. Her whole character was wrapped around neo-waifishness, not being aggressive, but having the man come to you. That was her whole ploy. When she's licking that ice cream cone in the front in slow motion, I don't know any man in a million that wouldn't walk toward her, I don't, married or not, you just get drawn by that femoral part of you, you know what I mean? You go, oh, just to see, get a closer look of what that's all about, it seems to go right to the core of male-female relationships, and she understood that clearly. Jenny's, if you're out there, if you see this, I've been missing you. I've been hoping to hear from you, and I don't know where she is, man.
We opened almost day in, day for day with Lost Boys, which was, of course, a vampire movie and made by Warner Brothers that had a tremendous amount of muscle behind it, distribution and marketing muscle behind it. And so we were this, we were just this little, this little whisper out there.
The nightmare of marketing independent films. Independent films weren't chic the way they are today.
They had chose to market it as release it over Halloween weekend, and it had a big picture of a bloody head, which was like one frame of the film.
I think it takes some finesse to market a film like this, and it was certainly made with a lot of finesse, and I think it should have been handled with the respect that Catherine took in making it, and that we all did.
Obviously you make films to communicate, and when initially it doesn't, it's daunting. It's devastating. You feel that, what am I doing? There must be something else I can do. Of course, I have no other skill. I can't do anything else. So I've got to try to figure out how to make this work. But I think that you realize that, in fact, timing is everything. And, either it didn't have the right obvious send-off, but it is tenacious. The ideas in it are either sound enough or captivating enough that it will find, a life of its own.
I think people have discovered Near Dark more over the years.
Its little energy has galvanized and gathered a lot of force, kind of like a wind, and it's become something that, actually, obviously to this day, but over the course of time when I'm promoting films, is always a focus of a lot of conversation and curiosity and seeming admiration. So I'm very grateful.
It was great movie making. I loved every minute of it.
I love this film.
It's one of my favorite pictures.
It really turned out to be a tremendous opportunity just to grow as an actor, and also to have a great experience at that age with somebody who really knows how to make a movie.
And one of the better memories in my life, movie making. Why? I don't know. Just was fun.
it's great to reminisce and remember some of the times that we had together. Good times.
How you doing, Jeff? Like shit. How you doing? I'm down to my last inch of skin.
See in hell!
Everybody claims to stake a flag of ownership onto the idea about the sequel. I think we all walked away with our own designs of how fun it would be to make a film called First Light.
It is, in fact, the prequel. It is the Civil War days and how this group formed and the sort of, and those that formed them.
The prequel would start with a deer getting hit by a car, and the blood from the deer would run down the crack and go into the soil right where we burned up.
A hand just comes up through the cement, like this, you know. Another hand comes up, pulls himself up, shakes him. It's Bill, you know, or Lance or whatever. One of the guys. They're coming up from the pavement. They've been reborn, or whatever it is, and you start your movie. And it could go anywhere from there.
I can't speak for anybody else, but I would love to go around again with that, because we just experienced so much together creatively that I know that whatever we did, Catherine would come up with a script, I'm certain.
Someday, perhaps.
We'll give Brad Pitt a little role in it.
I hate them when they ain't been shaved.